Yo, Jaaisdead is back with another reaction video. Now, I am a huge fan of the Scream franchise. Like, I think the Scream franchise might be my favorite horror franchise, not gonna lie. But, Film Theory just dropped a video about Scream. So, like, gotta watch that, right? Gotta watch it. But if you're new here, go ahead, subscribe, like down below, shout out what video you want me to watch, what song you want me to listen to. I might do both. I'll probably do both at the same time, to be honest. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. Scream's puppet master finally got masked. What do you mean by that?
Scream's original Ghostface killer is back. Everyone thought he died at the end of the first Scream movie, but he lived to see another day. And since then, he's been lurking in the shadows, biding his time to get his revenge. And the upcoming Scream 7 may just reveal that he's been pulling the strings as the true puppet master this whole time.
Hold up.
Hello, internets! Welcome to Film.
What you mean pulling the strings the whole time? You know how crazy that is to pull the strings the whole time, especially even getting to the point where we're targeting both Jenna Ortega and her sister. Like we're not even going for the original cast now, other than like Gail and Dewey. And rest in peace, Dewey, bro. Oh my God, rest in peace, Dewey.
Film Theory, the show that just loves to watch you scream. You know what the scariest thing of all is? An unclicked subscribe button. Quick, click it, or it's going to destroy us all. So today we are finally covering another classic horror franchise. One that I was really surprised to find that we'd never covered here on the channel. One of the most iconic series in all of cinema, with a masked villain you've absolutely seen before. And what is it?
It's a Scream, baby!
Yeah, today we're taking an overdue dive into
Scream is one of the most, like, you know, twist endings type of, you know, franchise, and the fact that they haven't covered yet is kind of crazy.
Hard to describe just how big of a deal Scream was when the first movie came out back in '96. I know a lot of you weren't alive back then. I was just a wee lad of 3 years old myself. But Scream not only revived the slasher genre when everyone thought that that type of horror was dead, but it also provided the default Halloween costume for kids to wear for decades to come. Scream also had a stacked cast in either their earliest film roles or surprise appearances. For real.
Yo, it's crazy. It's crazy when you spam the same costume every year, bro, and it's just Scream. Like, I love Scream as a franchise, but yo, we might have to cut it. We might have to dead the Scream costume, dog.
Well, there were some iconic actors on this roster. But for our purposes today, the name we want to focus on is Matthew Lillard, who you'll remember as either the best Shaggy, don't at me, or Mr. Purple himself, William Afton. Purple guy's got a history in horror, man. Let me set the scene for you in case it's been a while since you've seen the original Scream, or, you know, you weren't alive yet. Oh God, I'm so old. In the original movie, our intrepid hero Sydney and her teenage friends are being terrorized by a mysterious masked murderer known as Ghostface. You get it? Because he has the mask that looks like the face of a ghost?
I wonder if she...
Yeah, okay. Eventually, in the movie's big fun twist, it's revealed that there isn't just one killer. No, there are actually two men behind the mask. The first is Sydney's boyfriend, Billy, and the second is Billy's best friend, Stu, played by Mr. Always Comes Back, Matthew Lillard. Throughout the film, Billy and Stu go on a murderous rampage, killing around 5 people before their killing spree comes to an end. Billy is shot in the head, and Stu is electrocuted after Sydney drops a CRT TV on his head, bringing Ghostface's reign of terror to an end. Well, at least until the sequel, and the one after that, 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 and the TV show, all the way up until the new movie coming out this year. It's classic horror movie stuff, but there is a bit of a lingering question coming out of it. And I think letting Lillard ask it himself is the best thing here.
Listen, Stu is definitely alive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my character Stu is definitely alive.
Is Stu alive? A question furthered by the fact that Lillard is returning for Scream 7 next year. See, while Billy getting his mind blown is a pretty cut and dry death, Stu's execution via electrocution does cause me to squint a little bit. While his death is pretty iconic horror movie fare, if we look at it from a real world perspective, if we apply real world science and physics here, not only is there a strong case to be made that Stu could could have survived his tango with the television, but there's a surprising amount of evidence hidden throughout the franchise suggesting he did. And that right there, my friends, opens the door for the character's return in Scream 7, biding his time, waiting for his moment to strike.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that Stu is back because he always comes back. I'm sorry I had to. We are contractually obligated to make FNAF jokes on this channel. And he may very well be the secret mastermind behind the entire Scream franchise. So today, loyal theorists, you're getting a 2-in-1. A mini-theory mashup explaining to you how Stu should have survived his death in the original film, and laying out how he will return as the big bad in the new Scream movie months before it comes out. So get your masks and draw your blades, loyal theorists, as we figure out what's up with the original Ghostface killer. Alright, first up, we need to address the television-shaped elephant in the room. Obviously, during the third act climax of the very first Scream movie, Sidney pushes an old-school CRT TV onto Stu's face. If you're too young, basically, CRT TVs are those massive box TVs you've probably seen at your grandparents' house or at like Smash Brothers tournaments. It's basically the only two markets left for those things. Anyway, the television falls onto Stu's face.
These were actually kind of crazy though, because you can actually feel the static when you rub your hand on the front. These were crazy. You don't get that same feeling with flash screens anymore. You don't get that same. You don't get that same. That's probably why the quality of life have gone down. There's less static running in people's bodies.
Face and sparks fly as Stu lights up like a Christmas tree. Now, at first glance, this seems like a pretty gruesome and pretty straightforward way to go. I mean, these old school CRT TVs were no joke. They'd often have a voltage of anywhere between 24 and 32,000 volts, well above what's considered lethal for humans. Just so you get an idea there, above 11,000 volts is considered absolutely lethal. But even something as small as 2,400 volts could be too. And what's worse is that these televisions could even retain a lot of that voltage long after they were unplugged. So even if the TV magically became unplugged while falling to hit Stu, that wouldn't save him. But do you know what would have saved him? The glass.
Yeah,
that's between those high voltages, CRTs also contained dangerous metals, vacuum tubes, and could even give off low levels of X-ray radiation. These classic CRTs were dangerous on the inside, and the people who made and designed these things understood that. That means that in order for these bad boys to wind up in every living room across the country, they were packaged with some crazy safety measures, and one of those things was the glass. To protect against the threat of electrocution, the glass and the casing for these TVs were designed to insulate the electrical components from the outside. That's why you can go touch a CRT screen and not get electrocuted. Well, at least nothing more than a shock from static electricity. I actually wanted to debunk entirely that a television falling over like we see here in Scream would create such a violent reaction from the electricity within it, and just couldn't, because we can't account for all the variables of the television and how old it is and the wear and tear it might have and the malfunctions of the components going on inside. But either way, Stu would have been protected from whatever's happening in here with the electronics, with all the sparks flying everywhere, even if that did happen. But wait, I hear you saying, what if the screen broke and Stu's head was literally inside of the TV? And hey, that's a great question, but that wouldn't have happened either. The glass used in CRT televisions was actually made with metals like lead, barium, and strontium in order to block the aforementioned radiation, and that also had the side effect of making the glass significantly stronger. Believe me, it's not easy to crack this glass and get to the electrical insides, even if you're trying. I mean, just look at this video of someone going to town on a CRT with an aluminum baseball bat. It hurts this dude's hand and bends the bat before actually damaging the television at all. Now compare that to the absolutely tiny fall from the film and the idea of the glass shattering and Stu getting electrocuted.
Imagine being around that time, someone's significant other broke up with them and they got mad and then they tried to take a bat to their TV and it just broke the bat. You know how mad I'd be? I'd be like, you know what? You can have your TV. You can have your...
By whatever's malfunctioning inside is just unlikely. Personal story on this, but I actually used to have a CRT in my bedroom when I was a teenager. It was a hand-me-down from my mom, and it's what I played all my old-school Nintendo games on. Served me well all the way up until the Xbox 360. Anyway, I had it sort of precariously perched on the edge of this display stand, and one day, it tipped over, fell a solid foot or two, and face-planted on the hardwood floor. Not unlike what we see here with Stu, actually. But the TV had zero, and it all set back up. It was actually mostly fine. The screen was mostly intact, it turned on, everything worked. The only thing off was a bit of color distortion at the edge of the screen close to where it first made contact with the floor. The fact is, there's just little possibility that the TV would have been cracked or damaged enough for Stu to be electrocuted. In fact, the thing he probably would have needed to worry about more was the weight of these things. Thanks to those thick screens, CRTs similar to what we see here in Scream would have weighed somewhere between 50 and 150 pounds. Trust me, having hauled a few of these things to friends' houses to play video games, that is an accurate number. If that got dropped on your head with no warning, that could seriously damage you, give you a concussion, or could potentially crack or crush your skull. So then, Stu should be dead? Well, no. Rewatch the scene. Stu was prepared. Not only did he get off a good, well, scream before the television lands on him, but if you slow down the scene frame by frame, look closely and you'll see that Stu managed to get his hands up to block the TV in time, which would have absorbed some of the impact. If this actually happened to someone in real life, he might have broken some bones, maybe broken his nose. He might have been knocked unconscious, but he almost certainly would have survived. So, okay, if Stu didn't die here, that means that there's still a Ghostface killer somewhere out there, lurking in the background, doesn't it? And yeah, it does. And we actually see plenty of places where Stu pops up in the series after his alleged death, if you're eagle-eyed and beagle-eared enough to notice. In Scream 2, it's been confirmed that this partygoer here in the background was in fact played by Matthew Lillard, a little Stu cameo for anyone paying attention. And in Scream 5, listen carefully to one of the characters here in the background of this party.
Hey, Cream and Cool House.
Recognize that voice? Let's play it again.
Hey, Cream and Cool House.
Yep, that's Lillard. Oh, and by the way, this cool house that he mentions, guess who used to live there? If you guessed Stu, 1,500 points to you, my friend. Were these just fun little uncredited cameos and Easter eggs meant as fan service for hardcore screamers? Absolutely. But this is film theory. We thrive on taking this stuff to the logical extreme. And if you keep pulling on this thread, if we take a good, long, hard look in the mirror, well, you'll find that the ghost face looking back at you might not only be back to cause chaos in Scream 7, but he could very well be the mastermind behind most of the murder in the whole series. See, after Stu and Billy's untimely demise at the end of the first film, that wasn't the end of the Ghostface killer, clearly. I mean, the movie was a success. They had to keep making sequels. But in each of these subsequent movies, it was a new person, or persons, under the iconic mask, carrying out some new murderous scheme. But the catch here was that the killers, regardless of their motivations or means of murder, basically all of them had some special connection to one person in particular, Sydney, the protagonist of the first movie and the prototypical girl who lived. Obviously, there's Sydney's boyfriend Billy from the first film, but also in Scream 2, the role of Ghostface is taken over by Billy's mother. In the third film, Roman is Sydney's long-lost half-brother given up for adoption.
And then the fifth and sixth one is connected.
Jill from Scream 4 was Sydney's cousin, and in Scream 5, Richie is dating Billy's daughter Sam. The only Ghostface who didn't have a direct connection to Sydney was from Scream 6, which also happened to be the only Scream movie Sydney wasn't in. It would appear that someone out there has a grudge against Sydney, and I wonder who that could be. Oh, and also just real quick, even though Sam was the protagonist of Scream 5, there's still a world where it makes sense where Stu would also want to hurt her. In Scream 3, we learn that Billy's original plan was to pin the whole thing on Stu. Imagine the rage Stu must have felt when he heard about that. But since Billy died, he couldn't get revenge on him. But the next best thing, his daughter, someone also stalked by the Ghostface killer. But the thing that really makes this all make sense, what ties all of these strange cameos and why all of these characters seem to be out for blood against Sydney and Sam, the puzzle piece that has everything in this web connect back to Stu? Well, Scream 7 wasn't the first time the filmmakers considered bringing Stu back for the series. In fact, it's an idea that the Scream franchise creator Kevin Williamson has had on the top of his mind for decades. All the way back in the late 2000s, Matthew Lillard confirmed that he was originally meant to reprise his role as Stu for Scream 3. This movie was going to see Stu surviving getting up close and personal with the TV and serving time in prison, you know, for all the murders he did in the first film. But he wasn't just rotting behind bars. No, instead he was pulling the strings from his prison cell, directing a few teenagers who were part of a weird Ghostface fan club cult to get revenge on Sydney for ruining his fun and destroying his life. Unfortunately, just weeks before filming was set to begin, a real-world tragedy completely changed the trajectory of this film. On April 20th, 1999, two teenagers entered their high school in Columbine, Colorado, and ended up taking the lives of 13 students students and 1 teacher. This tragedy was one of the deadliest mass shootings in American history up until that point, with many in the public pointing to violent media like movies and video games for influencing the teenagers to carry out the act. Out of respect for the victims, Williamson scrapped the script for Scream 3, and another writer came in to overhaul the plot. And because of this, Stu's return to the world of horror was completely removed. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the story disappeared from the minds of its creators. See, while Williamson did go on to write and produce Scream 4, he hasn't really had much to do with the day-to-day creation of the series since then. He was an executive producer on both 2022's Scream and Scream 6. An executive producer basically just gives a thumbs up to a project and gets paid for it. And he wrote the pilot episode for the Scream TV series that apparently existed before it went on to have 3 seasons run by somebody else. The upcoming Scream 7 is the first movie Williamson has had a direct creative hand in decades. In fact, he's the director of this new movie. Scream 7 also had a lot of troubles in its production. Basically, its entire cast were either fired or left the project early on, requiring a complete rewrite very quickly. So this is how I see things playing out. We know that theoretically, Stu should have survived the television hitting his head. We know that Williamson also thinks that this should have happened and that he wanted this plot to happen before. So there is very much a world where Williamson came onto this project, collaborated with writers for the new movie, and put together a new story very fast. And what better way to do that than picking up an abandoned storyline and finally letting it pay off? Finally letting Stu return after stewing in his hatred for years to enact his revenge against those that he believes wronged him.
Yo, imagine this one. He actually kills Sidney Prescott, and then like someone else like ends up stopping him. That would be crazy. Like the final scene. Oh my god! Like the final scene. Sidney Prescott stops him, but she also like dies in the process. That would be crazy. But that would be such a good end, not gonna lie.
And hell, he might even be pulling the strings from prison, just like we know he was going to in that original plot for Scream 3. And now, with Scream 7, he can take matters into his own hands, put the mask back on, and reclaim his title as the original Ghostface Killer. Finally bringing this franchise and his character full circle. And most importantly, fulfilling Stu's promise from the very first Scream movie.
I'll be right back.
But hey, that's just a theory. Film theory.
Yo, W video film theory. Yeah, bro. Oh my god, that actually just made me a little bit more hyped to go see Scream 7. I cannot wait to watch the movie.